seriously, it was a road that was 20 years old. And I think we did 2 treatments of high density mineral bond and 1 other product on it. And after 20 years, it scored a 92 PCI, which is crazy. Very low cracks. It only barely had cracks coming off the manholes. So my name is Jed Bell. I've been working in local government and county government for 28 years. Primarily, I've been in the road department and engineering departments. So when I'm managing roads, the biggest challenges that I face are probably just the budget and the level of service that's required by various communities. That can change. Understanding what those needs are of the community and how to get the money to provide those services that the community wants. There's, different resources that you can tap into. There's been grant funding, there's been state grants. Those are a little time consuming and probably harder to come by, but just understanding your resources and making sure that the policymakers are aware of the community needs and the costs that are associated with those needs, and that ultimately the things that you do up front early on save you greatly over the long run. For every dollar you spend on preventative maintenance, you generally save about $10 in reconstruction costs. And as long as you have that thought in your head and you stay ahead of things and you're proactive, then it makes your budget go a lot farther. So the policymakers, as far as like the elected officials, what my philosophy has been is to give them as much information as I can, but put it in a package that they understand. Because a lot of people drive on roads, but it doesn't mean that they totally understand the maintenance of roads other than filling potholes and filling cracks, those types of things. But there's ways to prevent that. My perspective has always been to just be honest and give them the information and help them understand how it benefits the community. And typically you get a better end result than trying to buffalo them, I guess, or control the narrative or any of those kind of things. So my toolbox was created by using GIS and the pavement assessment based on the Federal Highway Administration distress manual. So what that does is it gives you a starting point of PCI on all of your different segments of your road. And then I don't believe that there's a one size fits all, unless you've got unlimited money and reconstruction is your one size fits all, then great. But different tools in our toolbox is to take the higher PCI roads that are in your better condition and keep your good roads good by using treatments like high density mineral bond. You can use some slurry seals, you can use seal coats, different treatments like that. Obviously crack sealing helps as well. And then if the roads are in further deterioration, then we'll use micro surfaces, chip seals, maybe thin overlays. As far as any of your bigger repairs, we generally have to go after grant money because they are much more expensive. So those would be your thick overlays or reconstruction, CIR, stuff like that. Yeah, so about 15 or more years ago, the good guys over at Holbrook Asphalt came and did a presentation for me on it, and we did a pilot project where we tested it out. And there's different stages that you can put it on. You can put it on the road early on. I've seen them do it as soon as a year after the road was constructed. And I think you do get more bang for your buck if you do that. But my approach has always been around year 3 to 5, I'll do a treatment of high density mineral bond, and then about every 5 to 6 years after that. And what we found in our first 15 years of using it was we did that on a road, and at year 19, I think it was, after 2 or 3 treatments, that road scored a 92 PCI. So if you've got a 30-year construction of a road and you're only spending 70 to 80 cents per square foot over a 20-year period, and you can still be in a 90 PCI, I mean, that's a huge cost savings. So it goes with the thought that if you get on it early and you keep your good roads good, you can get 50 years of life out of them, and it really doesn't cost you that much. Every time that we have used HA5 in a residential area, I have more positive feedback than I ever do for negative feedback. Any of the negative feedback generally will come from the inconvenience of their subdivision being having construction activity within that subdivision. But the positives far outweigh that day or two of inconvenience, and it's fairly easy to explain to the resident that we have to do these treatments in order to preserve the asphalt. If we don't, then you're going to have to reconstruct the road, which is going to be a far more inconvenience than a simple day or two that it's going to take to install the high density mineral bond. So why not chip seal in a residential area? And what I have found is if you put chip seals in residential areas, residents tend to not like the finish of the chip seal. They find it's a little too rough for kids to be skateboarding on, things like that. If you've got curb and gutter and sidewalk, then you'll get some chip shed that will bleed off on and end up in the curb and gutter itself, and it's just not very friendly for residential areas. High density mineral bond, you get a nice smooth finish. It's a clean application after it's installed, and the road looks like a brand new road for 5 to 7 years after it's completed. Slurry seals are generally when there's some cracking in the road. So I'll pair it with a crack seal and then a slurry seal over the top of it. I also look for asphalt that might have some pitting, where it's losing some of the aggregate, or maybe some very, very shallow raveling areas. I think slurry seals and microsurfaces are really good for that type of asphalt surface, depending on the ADT or the amount of traffic that it gets. If it's a minor collector and it's showing those types of fatigue, then I would generally use a microsurface. If it's a residential road that gets low traffic volumes and it's showing those types of fatigue, I would generally steer towards a type 2 slurry seal. But unless it's losing aggregate and pitting and doing things like that, I typically try to go more towards something that's more visually appealing and effective, and that's why we'll use the high density mineral bond in a lot of those cases. What I would tell a new employee that's starting out in this field is that if you're doing it to be a service to the community, then you'll probably get the most impact out of your time and is most rewarding. Ultimately, it's a service that you're providing to a community, you know, be it through the condition of the roads. If the roads are nice, then typically you get more development. More development brings more parks, and more parks brings more community things to do. So in my mind, it all comes from building good roads. And one of our past presidents said that it's not the roads, it's not the nation's wealth that builds the roads, but the roads that build the nation's wealth. And I think that can't be more true. So what my advice would be when you're closing roads down in an area that might not be used to having this type of road closures and things like that, is to give plenty of notice, door hangers, PCMS boards up around the area that lets people know that are coming in and out of that area that there's going to be a road closure in 2 weeks. And then generally I like to do a door hanger 24 to 48 hours before the actual road closure. Give them a good contact number where they can call and somebody will actually answer the phone and explain to them that for every dollar we spend on maintaining your road, we're saving you $10 on reconstructing your road later down the road. And we have to do that as government officials because we need to be good stewards of the tax dollars. And if we're not, then we're not doing our job. So I understand it's a minor inconvenience, and we'll do whatever we can to accommodate you with foot traffic, parking areas as close as we can to the site. But it's imperative that we do this because we can't afford to reconstruct the roads. It's typically how the phone call goes. And people don't know what they don't know. You know what I mean? So typically if you're just honest with them and explain to them what's going on and what the reasoning behind it is, they'll calm down. Like, I don't know how many residents that I've told I would love for every road in the county to be brand new. My job would be so easy if every road was brand new. But at $1 million a mile, you just simply can't. We don't tax that much. So it's not obtainable. So we have to do these things that are obtainable with the amount of taxes that the community is comfortable with paying to preserve the roads as best we can. And that's really the goal of it. So if somebody asked me about high density mineral bond, I'd obviously tell them that it's a product that I've been using for about 2 decades now. I've watched it get installed in many different applications on roads that have curb and gutter, roads that don't have curb and gutter, over the top of slurry seals that have worn off, over the top of chip seals that have worn off, brand new roads. And I have yet to have an issue with the high density mineral bond performing as it's supposed to. I've always gone back and watched it over the years after it was installed, and the cracking, it just doesn't come through. It prevents a lot of the deterioration, and working with Holbrook Asphalt has always been fair, and I've never had any change orders that were unanticipated.